Hello friends. This is Subhant What Ifs. Welcome to my channel. So we are back with second episode on what if Naruto was the son of Hippolyta. Before we start the story, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Now let's start the story. It's been over a year since Diana left the peaceful shores of Paradise Island to begin her God-giving odyssey with Colonel Steve Trevor hitching a ride back home, and since then all of Themyscira has been missing their kind princess. But none more than Naruto. It was only single day after Diana's departure when the spiky-haired prince realized how much he preferred having life left undisturbed. Although he never knew a moment of loneliness, Themyscira's first son couldn't stop an uneasy feeling from emerging within the pit of his belly whenever he woke up to realize Diana won't be joining him and the queen for breakfast because she's currently off on some grand adventure the god saw fit to drop into her lap. However, despite the great deal of longing he felt for his older sister's return, Naruto would not allow himself to walk around the palace sulking. He has far too many things to attend. So through sheer force of will, Naruto pushed his thoughts of Diana aside momentarily in favor of returning to his daily routines, reading with Alexa in the garden, sparring with Artemis in the courtyard, helping whomever calls upon him and exploring the island with Deimos at his side. The only real time he had to devote to thinking about his sister would be in the dead of the night. "You really didn't have to do this, my prince," an Amazon who went by the name Themysciran said as she walked few feet behind the prince with a basket filled with herbs and spices in each hand. "Such an act like this is beneath you." "Nonsense." Naruto responded with a charming smile as he also carried two baskets filled with goods picked from Themysciran's garden. "As the Prince of Themyscira I am nothing more than a servant to my people, nothing is beneath me, big sister." It was during Naruto's morning stroll through the city when he happened to come upon Themysciran toiling away in her garden without a helping hand. Of course he knew his only option at that moment was to assist his sister. Thank you, my prince." The Amazon muttered as her fair skin turned slightly red. Unlike so many of her fellow Amazons, Themysciran was known to have a bit of shyness to her, a trait that did not follow her on the battlefield. You honor me with presence." Naruto stopped himself from outright scoffing at Themysciran's words. "You speak to me as if I'm your better sister, when the truth is I'm not. Just like you, I'm nothing more than a Themysciran." The snowy-haired Amazon almost dropped her baskets in response to Naruto's words. "But my prince, you are not a simple Themysciran," Themysciran exclaimed. "You are the first male Themysciran and the product of Queen Hippolyta's mercy and Ares' godly abilities. You have the potential to be so much more than us." "I know, and that scares me." After the pair finished harvesting any and all of the ripe crops, Naruto helped Themysciran sort out the herbs and spices before heading out to continue his day. With nothing else to grab his attention, the prince idly walked through the streets, greeting any Themysciran who looked his way. "My prince." At sound of his title and a horse's neigh, Naruto turned to see his mother's personal guard quickly approaching him by way of horseback. "Philpus, how are you this fine morning, big sister?" the royal child said once the armored Amazon was only within a few feet of his person. "I'm quite fine, little brother," Philpus said after bringing her steed to a halt. "Especially in the light of wonderful news I've just received." The golden brow was arched at the Amazonian general's declaration. "Mind sharing, big sister?" Philpus graciously bowed her before speaking. "Your sister, Princess Diana, will soon be with us once more. Her God-given quest has come to an end and she's currently only a few miles out." Instantly, Naruto's eyes lit up in pure excitement. "Really?" "Yes, my prince," the dusky-skinned Amazon replied. "And your mother has requested your presence at the palace. She wishes you to be by her side when the princess arrives." Before answering Philpus, Naruto looked to the sky in search of something in particular. Seconds later, his search ended, prompting him to release a loud whistle. "Send our beautiful and kind queen my apologies, Philpus. I'm afraid I can't wait that long." Blinking in surprise, Philpus had every intent to ask her prince what he planned on doing, but the sudden arrival man-sized eagle put her question to rest. "I shall inform the queen you'll be arrive alongside the princess." "Thank you, Philpus," Naruto said as he mounted the large eagle. "And which way does our sister travel?" "Northeast, my prince." "You heard her, my friend, we travel northeast." With an understandably loud caw, the eagle effortlessly took to the sky. Despite the prince's added weight, the large bird of prey flew at high speeds. After a few minutes of flying, the eagle and its blonde passenger were more than a few miles away from Themyscira. Thanks to Naruto's Amazonian physiology, he was gifted with the ability to see things others can't, and that included the Lancinarian morphing disc, which currently held the form of an invisible plane. Once the eagle was side by side with the plane, the prince fearlessly jumped, mid-air, onto its wings. A second later, the plane's cockpit opened to allow Naruto entrance. He wasted not a second entering the airborne craft. "I have missed you, little brother." Those words, compiled with a brilliant smile, were what awaited Naruto in the Lancinarian's cockpit. "And I've missed you too, big sister." Naruto quickly wrapped his sister in a hug as the two of them flew home. Hours later, After Naruto personally escorted his sister to the palace, Diana greeted everyone in sight before ridding herself of the equipment she used to complete the god's quest. Once everything was properly stored in the armory, Hippolyta made a commanded that a large feast be held in honor of their princess's safe return. The queen herself led a hunting party that was charged with gathering the meat, while the prince helped out in the kitchen, and the princess assisted with preparing the dining hall. It would be hours after sunset before everything is properly prepared to support the great feast Hippolyta has demanded. However, the finished product makes everything worth all the hard work. The hunters provided the cooks more than enough fresh meat to use, the cooks made a variety of dishes to suit the palates of hungry Amazons, and dining hall looked good enough to host a god's birthday. So after singing a few prayers to the gods and a heartfelt speech from the queen, the Amazons began enjoying the fruits, no pun intended, of their labors, while Diana told them stories of the outside world. The princess told her fellow Themyscirans about the outside world's technological advances, how the barrier that separated genders was still present, but weakening as more and more women proved themselves to be equal to, if not better than men in their chosen profession. But most importantly, Diana told the Themyscirans about the friendship she's formed and challenges she's faced. For Naruto, it was fascinating to hear about the exciting things he lacked in his life, not that he resents the peaceful one he lives with his mother and sisters, it's just that Diana's tales began to spark his sense of adventure. Days later, almost done. Naruto muttered to himself as he used a sharpening stone in order to ensure his double-edged sword maintained its sharpness. Since today was particularly hot, the prince occupied the lavish balcony that's attached to his room. He loved the overlooking view of Themyscira the balcony offered. And just as the day seemed like it would be like so many others, something truly abnormal happened. Diana. Diana. Heed thy master's voice. Erupting from the heavens above was a great voice that was heard all throughout Paradise Island. Although the booming voice was new to Naruto, that didn't stop him from deducing the speaker. Lord Zeus. Who else but a being of Olympus could be capable of projecting their voice over an entire island country? Be not alarmed, my children. Be joyful. For thou art beloved in my sight. For reasons he didn't quite understand, Naruto felt uneasy about Zeus's voice. It contained something that seemed corrupted. For her triumph over the forces that would see us all to ruin, the Princess Diana has earned a special gift. One which alone I'm able to bestow. All throughout the sky lightning danced every which way. Thus come with me, Diana. Come into the presence of thy master. Shouldering his sword, Naruto watched as the clouds above parted to allow Diana to ascend into Olympus. Quite a sight, isn't it, my son? With wide eyes, the prince quickly turned to the side of Ares, fully clad in his godly armor, standing in the middle of his room. You. Naruto said with a sneer. Tightening the grip on his weapon's hilt, the warrior prince rushed the god of war with intent to draw blood. The attack ended when his father effortlessly caught the incoming blade with his armored hand. Is this how you would greet your father, child? A swinging sword in blind fury. With his free hand, Ares removed his helmet to reveal he's still using the face of Naruto's birth father. I approve. Understanding that his sword was lost to him, Naruto relinquished his hold on the hilt and quickly made his way wall that was decorated with an assortment of weapons. His immediate choice was a long spear. Why are you here, Ares? Naruto asked with his spear poised to strike. I'm here to warn you, my son. Ares said with a benevolent smile. Naruto's eyes narrowed in suspicion. Warn me about what, King of Lies? After carelessly tossing aside Naruto's weapon, the god of war began slowly walking towards his son. The spear Naruto attempted to run through his stomach was easily brushed away. Trust me, child. I'm not here to lie to you, I only want to help. The god's words were filled with serenity. Naruto glared at that face that looked so much like his own. Do you believe me foolish enough to trust any words you speak? HMPH, your mother has done an excellent job teaching you how to distrust me. Ares idly noted. Anyway, the words I speak to you are nothing but the truth, for there is nothing to gain from lying to my son. I don't particularly like the Amazons, but of course you know that a number of the wars your mother and sisters fought are due to instigation. And with that said, I know you, my son, care about them a great deal, and because of which I'm here to warn you about Zeus's intentions. Intentions? Naruto parroted. Why would I need to be warned of the God King's intentions? He wishes to reward Diana for all her hard work. At least that's the idea he gained from Zeus's words. Ares shook his head dejectedly. I know for a fact that your mother and sisters has told you all about the gods who inhabit Olympus, but are you telling me they failed to inform you of Zeus's habits? On Mount Olympus, Zeus's obsession with betting any woman who caught his eye was well known, much to anger of Hera. Over the years, in an attempt to hide his multiple betrayals, the God King has employed a number of tricks to sleep with women. In most cases, Zeus would selfishly disregard the effect his unwanted advances left on the misfortune women lives. Speak clearly, Ares, and tell me what you're alluding towards. Naivety. Hippolyta allows my son to suffer from naivety. The god muttered before setting the young Themysciran straight. My father intends to take you beloved sister's chastity despite her opinion on the matter. Ares watched as Naruto's eyes widen. Like I said before, I have no love for the Amazons. The only reason I bring you this information is to see what you will do with it. Before Naruto could form a proper response, a scream, not unlike Zeus's voice, erupted from above and filled the air of Themyscira. It only took the Themysciran prince a second to realize the pained voice belonged to his sister. Diana. Ares maintained a look of neutrality at the sound of the Amazonian princess's plight. I'm guessing the princess did not reciprocate my father's advances. Do you wish to aid your dear sister? Yes. Of course I do. Was Naruto's immediate response. See, can you help me? If rescuing Diana meant he needed to ask Ares for help, Naruto was prepared to pledge his loyalty to the god of war right now. Keeping a smile from his face, Ares simply walked over to the door that lead into the palace's halls and placed a hand on its wooden frame. Tell me, what do you intend do to help your sister? Naruto glanced towards the heavens then back at Ares. What I must. Good answer, boy. Now prepare to walk among the Olympians. And with that said, Ares opened the room's door and instead of the palace's hall a blinding light greeted Naruto. Before you go, I have something for you. With a snap of his fingers, Ares watched as a blue flame enveloped Naruto's entire person. Once the flame died down, it took Naruto a few moments to discover what was different about himself. Attached to his back, by some unseen force, were the blades of exile in all their glory. Save your sister from Zeus's unjust fury. Sparing just a few seconds, Naruto met Ares' eyes. Thank you. Father. After that, he ran directly into the light. What met Naruto on the other end of the door was a number of glorious sights, massive marble structures that couldn't possibly be made by human hands, temples supported by nothing more white clouds and so many other wonders. But for now, nothing mattered but finding his sister. Using the screams of his sister as a guide, Naruto eventually found himself standing in the upper rafters of a great hall, while Zeus, surrounded by a number of other gods and goddess, hurled bolts of red lightning at Diana. Fueled purely by rage, the prince withdrew the blades of exile from his back and lunged at the god king with a primal roar. Zeus. The citizens of Olympus watched in shock as the Themyscira prince dragged both his blades against Zeus's back, effectively putting an end to his sister's pain. Even Hermes, the fastest god alive, failed to properly respond to the surprise assault. Despite the massive wounds he sustained underneath the blades, Zeus did not scream in pain or even cringe, he simply turned to his assailant. Thou hast dared to raise arms against thy master. Of course Zeus recognized the child to be Hippolyta's own, which in turn meant he's a Themysciran and a servant of the gods. With his blades wet with the god king's blood, Naruto glared at Zeus without a hint of fear in his eyes. You are no master of mine, Zeus. The prince loudly declared. You are nothing more than almighty deviant to me. Zeus shook with rage. Either thou is a fool or hast forgotten thy place. I am the king of gods. Whatever I so choose to do should be worshipped and praised by thou. Suddenly, blue flames cloaked the blades of exile entire frame, and Naruto's eyes became blood red. You wish to honored for forcing yourself on women, you truly are mad. Themyscira is already filled with women who have witnessed cruelty of humanity, and now you wish to come along and show them the cruelty of gods. Themyscira is mine, child. If I so choose to make it my own personal brothel, there is nothing thou can do to stop me. You're just like him. Naruto muttered. You just like your son, Hercules. Nothing but a defiler given power. What did thou just say? Does your divinity fail to give you working heirs, Zeus? And that was all Zeus could take. Emerging from the god king's hand were waves of red lightning. Thou dost dare. Despite the intense pain he felt, Naruto didn't want to allow Zeus the satisfaction of hearing him yell out. Biting his bottom lip hard enough to draw blood, the enraged prince maintained his glare on Zeus, while tightened his grip on the blades of exile's hilts. When it became apparent Zeus would not stop until he received a cry of pain, the beautiful Hera decided to intervene. That is enough, husband. Wife. Thou would also keep me from doing what is within my right. The queen of the gods placed one of her hands onto Zeus's. I would keep thou from killing our grandson. Heeding the words of his wife, Zeus put an end to his assault and allowed the child to fall unconsciously to the ground. HMPH, this child has not only took up arms against his master, but also spilled my sacred blood. I cannot allow these misdeeds to go unpunished. The frown marred Hera's enchanting features. If Zeus was willing to torture an Amazon who refused his sexual advances, what would he do against a demigod who drew his blood? The goddess queen was not willing to find out. He acted in the defense of his sister, husband. Thou would punish him for that. She didn't need an answer, Hera knew the stance her husband would have on such matters. With a small wave of her hand, Hera sent Diana back to Paradise Island before walking over to the small prince and taking him into her arms. Hast thou lost thy mind, wife? Zeus raged. I was in the middle of dispensing punishment against these disrespectful Themyscirans. And I am in the middle of ending it, husband. But the unconscious prince in hand, Hera left the meeting hall and made her way to her personal chambers. After placing the child on her bed, the godly queen began gently running a hand through Naruto's spiky locks while humming a soft tune. It would be minutes before Naruto's blue eyes fluttered open. To ensure the whisker-marked prince understood the situation, Hera greeted the child with a benevolent smile. "Arise, my young Themysciran, and greet the goddess who loves you." "Diana," was the first word to come out of Naruto's mouth the moment he regained consciousness. In a fevered panic he began searching the room for any sign of his sister. Taking both of the prince's whisker-marked cheeks into her hand, Hera spoke in a calming voice. "Easy there, my child. Thy beloved sister is back home and safe from my husband's wrongful wraith." The pure sincerity in the goddess's voice allowed him to believe her. "Thank you, great mother, for saving my sister," he said while humbly bowing his head. "I was inspired thy actions, my beloved child," Hera admitted. "Thy foolish actions." Naruto made no attempt to look ashamed of his actions. "I understand how unwise my actions were, but I couldn't just stand idly by while that deviant punishes my sister for refuse to be his plaything." Just thinking about the god king infuriated the Amazonian prince. In the snap of a finger, Hera lost her motherly expression and her eyes gained an absent look. "My husband is indeed a deviant. I can't not even count the number of women he has betrayed me with. Tell me, my beloved child, what is thou willing give up, what is thou willing to do in order to protect thy fellow Themyscirans?" "Anything, great mother," Naruto said without a hint of hesitation. "Anything. That is most pleasing to know, my beloved child," she said before kissing the prince's forehead. "Now go back to thy mother and sisters, we will have more words soon." And with a wave of her hand Naruto was returned to Themyscira, leaving Hera to converse freely with her son. "You can leave the shadows now, Ares." Right before Hera's very eyes, the god of war appeared seemingly from thin air. "You have plans for my son?" It wasn't a question, Ares knew his mother's kindness came with ulterior motives. The god queen didn't even try to meet Ares's eyes. "Thou presumes too much, my son. Thy precious son," Hippolyta softly said as she stood over Naruto's sleeping form while gentle caressing his exposed whisker-marked cheek. "Look at you, sleeping peacefully as if you didn't make an attempt on the king of Olympus's life." Because Zeus saw fit to ensure every Amazon knew what awaited them if they denied his future advances, the queen and all of her Themysciran sisters had no choice but to listen haplessly as Diana screamed underneath the unjust punishment Zeus dealt out to the princess. In the mind of the queen, Diana's pain-filled screams seemed to last a lifetime, that is, until Naruto made a surprise visit to Mount Olympus. Hippolyta and all of Themysciran fearfully listened attentively as the Amazonian prince insulted and berated Zeus for his perversion. While some, like Artemis, made no attempt to hide the pride and amusement they felt in Naruto's actions, the beloved queen couldn't do anything but hold her breath in weight of Zeus's retaliation. As both a mother and warrior, it pained the proud woman that she couldn't come to her children's rescue. However, unlike her husband, the goddess Hera lived up to her reputation of kindness and returned the prince and princess home. After ensuring their health and informing them how worried she was, Hippolyta gave Naruto an hour-long lecture about how foolish his actions were, to which he aptly replied, "Mother, I would not hesitate to do it again." Every woman in ear's length of the conversation smiled proudly as the queen embraced the prince while whispering, "I know. You really are quickly becoming the man I thought you'd be." After spending hours upon hours in the throne room in discussions with her top advisors, Hippolyta decided to pay her son a late-night visit, only to find him fast asleep. Not that she blamed him, today was emotionally exhausting. Gifting Naruto a quick peek on the forehead, Hippolyta gently adjusted the blanket that covered her son's form before quietly exited the room. "May Morpheus grant you pleasant dreams, my little golden lion. Hera knows you deserve them." As the raven-haired queen entered the palace's halls, she only had to turn her head to the left to gain a view of the oakwood door that led into Diana's room. Taking in a sharp breath, Hippolyta entered the princess's room and immediately found herself greeted with the sight of Diana toying with the gold necklaces that held the initials WW. According to her daughter, it stood for Wonder Woman, a name the people of the outside world bestowed upon her after witnessing her heroic deeds. Good, her mind is already focused on the outside world. Something that would normally annoy Hippolyta, but in lieu of certain circumstances she's hoping Diana's wandering mind may prove beneficial. Upon noticing her mother's presence, Diana quickly placed the necklace on her nightstand and stood up to properly greet her queen. "Ah, mother, to what do I owe this late-night visit?" Despite the question and her smile, Diana knew the unpleasant reason for her mother's late-night visit. She wished to talk more about Zeus's betrayal. "Please, take a seat, Diana, we have much to discuss." Once the princess placed herself on the soft surface of her bed, Hippolyta joined her daughter. "Did you know Artemis had intents to steal your brother's first kiss today?" Hippolyta asked as she giggled at the memory of the Bonum idol, grasped Naruto's whisker-marked cheeks. Her claim was, it was nothing more than a reward for his grand act of bravery. And it would have been a well-deserved reward. Diana quickly replied. He came to my aid when I desperately needed help, just like he was taught, mother. It still warmed her heart to hear how fearless her little brother acted in the presence of Zeus, just because he felt an overwhelming need to help his sister. I don't quite know how, mother, but I will find a way to properly show Naruto how much I appreciate his act of kindness. The queen gained a sad smile as diverted her eyes onto the ground. I think I have a solution for your dilemma, Diana. Once the princess looked at her with curiosity brimming in her blue eyes, Hippolyta, after a small internal struggle, made her suggestion no. You can take your brother far away from the shores of Themyscira. Needless to say, Diana was more than shocked at her mother's proposal. You can't be serious, mother. The princess shouted. In reaction to Diana's loud outburst, Hippolyta quickly covered her daughter's mouth with her right hand in order to keep their conversation under a certain volume. I'm going to have to ask you to speak more softly, my dear daughter. As you know, your brother's room is right next door, and I wish to have him remain ignorant of this conversation. Understood. Once the princess nodded in agreement, Hippolyta released her gentle hold and explained the reasoning behind her surprising suggestion. Now, I know this isn't what you may want to hear, but taking Naruto away from Themyscira is one of the best thing you can do for him, Diana. I've talked it over with my advisors, and we've reached the conclusion that Naruto isn't safe here and it would be best if he leave. This is because of his actions against Zeus on my behalf. Diana quietly concluded. After witnessing firsthand what type of person the God King was, the Amazonian princess couldn't imagine Zeus letting her little brother go unpunished. When Hippolyta nodded in confirmation, the princess instinctively clenched her fists. I wish I can say such a thing is highly unnecessary. But she wouldn't even believe herself. Please tell me, this isn't permanent, mother. Oh, heavens no. Hippolyta said with no hesitation. This isn't a banishment, Diana. We just think it would be best if your brother goes to a place where Zeus's reach is limited. Because Olympian gods depend on the prayer and faith of mortals to keep them from fading from existence, their sway in the outside world is noticeably weaker than what it would be in Themyscira because the number of people who still praise the Olympians has substantially dwindled over the passing years. Unlike on Isle of the Amazons, Zeus and his fellow gods are not omnipotent and can be killed if they go where their name isn't honored. You must know Naruto won't expect this idea with open arms, mother. Diana said as thoughts of her brother's infamous stubbornness entered her mind. There wasn't really many things that could put Naruto in conflict with his mother or sisters, but whenever the blonde bundle of energy found himself disagreement with a fellow Themyscirans, the arguments are known to be legendary. He would most likely view leaving Themyscira as appeasement to Zeus. Hippolyta nodded in agreement. She was well aware just how hard-headed her son could be when faced with something that clashed with his principles. You are absolutely right. The queen said as she rose to her feet and met Diana's eyes. Which is why I, Hippolyta, Queen of Themyscira, command you, Princess Diana and Prince oversee Themyscira's return to the world by constructing and running a Themysciran embassy. As my children, you two will be responsible for ensuring the world knows that we Themyscirans may be kind and just, but if threatened, merciless. An embassy? Diana said thoughtfully. This wasn't the first time thoughts of a Themysciran embassy entered the princess's mind. During her time in the outside world, she attended a United Nations meeting where a number of foreign diplomats suggested Themyscira join their ranks. As tempting as she thought the offer to be, Diana had no choice but to refuse. Only the queen has the power to dictate whether or not Themyscira can be revealed to the public's eye. And here she was, the queen, giving Diana permission to spread Themyscira's message. When shall I inform Naruto of our new responsibility? First thing tomorrow, and let him know you and a handful of Amazons will be departing in 5 days. That number should be more than sufficient enough for me to figure out who I want joining you and your brother. 5 days later. Naruto, dressed in Bonham Idol-styled clothes which included a stylized red and blue gladiator skirt, red leather vest and of course his ever-present gold ram armband, impatiently paced back and forth around the throne room in wait of his sister's arrival. Where is she? The warrior prince muttered as he fought the urge to go personally search the palace for his sister. Initially, he was a bit skeptical with his mother and Diana's timing, but after proper explanation from his mother about how important his role will be, Naruto's skepticism quickly changed into pure enthusiasm. We were supposed to have left for the Lancinarian morphing disc 5 minutes ago. From her throne, Hippolyta watched in amusement as her youngest child continued to walk aimlessly around the large room. No need to fret, my dear son, I'm sure your sister will arrive the moment she is able. She said in a reassuring tone. Although in her eyes the Themysciran embassy was nothing than a ruse to get her son off the island to avoid any possible retaliation from Zeus, Hippolyta was happy to see Naruto so ready to embrace his princely responsibilities. His upbeat attitude did a very good job showing off his willingness to contribute to his home's future. Well, I hope she able sooner rather than later. And right on cue, the large marble doors opened and in entered Diana, garbed in her Wonder Woman outfit, with a small band of Amazons trailing behind her. Apologies for my lateness, little brother, but I seem to run into a number of our sisters who wish to personally say goodbye. That is, if you are not in too much of a rush to receive your sister's well wishes. Suddenly, Naruto felt as though he had more than a few minutes to spare. There isn't much on this world that can make me too busy for my sisters. Behind the prince, his mother smiled benevolently. Themyscira's beautiful and extremely talented blacksmith, was the first to step forward with a large white silk bundle clutched in her arms. My dear prince, the accomplished blacksmith said before bowing and humbling presenting the bundle to Naruto. But the knowledge that you will soon be departing Paradise Island to spread the word of Themyscira's glory to the world, I have crafted you a sword to help you carve your way through any obstacles that might block your path. And a shield to protect you from the evils that will undoubtedly wish to cause you harm. Although the prince and princess's trip was supposed to be purely diplomatic, word had gotten to Io about all the dangers Diana encountered, and that encouraged her to create the prince a proper weapon. Your gift honors me, sister. Naruto said as he unfolded the silk bundle to reveal Io's gifts to the world. The shield looked as though it was made out of pure gold and held the image of a red 5-point star in its center. As for the sword, which he had to unsheathe, was a thing of beauty. The cross guard resembled a golden eagle spreading its wings, the grip was fine leather painted red, and the blade itself measured around 28 inches long and held a distinctive ripple pattern going through its form which incidentally gave him the answer to what martial was used in the forging of this fine weapon. Valyrian steel. According to his afternoon lessons with Alexa, Valyrian steel was manufactured in the depths of Hades by the smith god Hephaestus and given to the Amazons by way of Athena. Thanks to the divine effort that went into the Valyrian steel's creation, the Amazons were able to use it to forge some of the most deadly weapons of wartime. Such fine craftsmanship, Io. Hippolyta said as she looked over her son's newest armaments with a appraising eye. Though she made no verbal comment, she instantly recognized that the sword was modeled after her own. I shall treasure these all my life, big sister. While Io was still bowing, Naruto walked over to her and placed his forehead onto her own. Just as I treasure you and the rest of my family. Of course family meant every Amazon who inhabits Themyscira. May Lady Hera see you safely return to our shores, Prince Naruto. And with that said, Io gave way to another Themysciran, Antiope. Looking as beautiful as always, Antiope took a knee and gestured for the blonde prince to come closer. I swear, Hippolyta must have placed a spell on you when you were a child, my dear nephew, because I doubt anyone can actually be so handsome without any sort of enchantment. The blonde Amazon said as she lightly placed 2 fingers on Naruto's ever-present gold band. You remember the day I gave you this? Of course, Aunt Antiope. Naruto immediately responded. On my 5th birthday, you told me it kept you safe through a number of battles, and if the need shall arise, it will do the same for me. And I bet you're wondering just how can a simple piece of jewelry aid me in battle? The curiosity in her nephew's eyes conveyed was the only response she needed before show-off would make the golden band so special. Because, Naruto, this isn't just any armlet. For a few short moments, the band glowed brightly before magically separate into 3 separate parts, upper shoulder, bicep and lower arm. And like the small band before it, the fleece was decorated with the image of a ram. Behold, the golden fleece. A Hephaestus forged item capable of block and redirecting just about anything. Anytime you find yourself in conflict, the fleece will always be sure to make its presence known. As Naruto properly thanked Antiope for the fleece, Hippolyta descended her throne and walked over to her son. Well, this whole gift exchange is a little impromptu in my eyes, I do have something for you also, my son. With her right hand, the Amazonian queen removed her left bracelets of submission and handed it to Naruto. It didn't need to be said, everyone in the room knew just how significant Hippolyta's gift was. Naruto marveled at the indestructible cuff his mother had just placed within his hands. I thank you, mother, I promise you this will never leave my person. And with that said, he slipped the bracelet onto his left forearm. You wear that bracelet well, Prince of the Amazons, the gathered Themyscirans heard a surprising voice say. In a near simultaneous act, the Amazons diverted their attention towards the throne to catch sight of the goddess Hera, seemingly relaxing with a tranquil smile on her face and a small parcel in her lap. Upon recognition of their goddess, the Themyscirans humbly bowed. Lady Hera, Hippolyta began. You honor me and my family with your presence. There never was a point in Hippolyta's life when she didn't hold Hera in high regard. After all, she and her daughter saw the Amazons through some tough times, so when word reached her that goddess queen was the one who saved her son from Zeus's wrath, she made sure that each of her nightly prayers were directed towards Hera's continued reign. You honor yourselves, Hippolyta. Hera said as she waved off her fellow queen's kind words. Now approach me, Hippolyta's little lion. Without question, Naruto walked over to the goddess. So brave. So strong. And yet, so young. I see many great things in your future, child. The goddess queen said as she handed Naruto a parcel. Since the theme of the day seems to be shower the prince with gifts, I figured I shall participate. The way Naruto carelessly ripped away the parcel wrapping reminded the room of his age. Once all the paper was gone, the prince held a very peculiar-looking cloth in his hand. The fabric itself, while blacker than the deepest abyss, it was also heavenly to the touch, if anything it felt like very fine silk. Another eye-catching detail about the fabric was how it strongly resembled the night sky. All around its form a number of glowing, small white dots could be seen doing a very good impression of faraway stars. Taking the initiative, Hera took the cloth from Naruto's hands and channeled a bit of her power through it, causing the cloth to grow in size. Once she was done, the cloth was long enough to serve as the prince's cape. This, little lion, the goddess said as she placed the cloth-turned cloak onto Naruto, is made from starry firmament. A special material that will allow you to soar like an eagle. Many thanks, Lady Hera, I will try my very best to live up to the aspirations you have for me. Oh, I know you will, little lion, Hera said as she placed both her hands together for a moment before separating them. Wedged between the goddess's two palms, much to the amazement of the Themyscirans, was the highly recognizable form of a lightning bolt. Behold, one of my traitorous husband's lightning bolts. There isn't any need to fear that he might notice its absence, the lecherous fool has hundreds of these things, and very little need to hurl them, unless he's having one of his infamous temper tantrum. Naruto watched in amazement as the goddess who favored him embed the lightning bolt into his newly gained bracelet of submission, effectively turning the flawless silver into pure gold. Naruto, out of pure instinct, tightly clutched his left hand, causing a sphere of lighting to surround his fist. Well, this is interesting. With intent to thank the goddess for her gift, Naruto looked up only to discover Hera had returned to Mount Olympus. Now that Hera was no longer in their presences, Hippolyta along with the other Amazons stood upright once. Naruto, Diana. The queen said with a slight tremble in her voice. We should be leaving for the Lancinarian morphing disc now. I believe we made the others wait long enough, with Hippolyta taking the lead and her children following closely behind her. The royal family made their way out of the palace to the streets of Themyscira. Flanking both sides of the road that would lead the queen and her brood to the Lancinarian morphing disc was every single able-bodied Themyscirans clad in their full armor. The presences of their extended family caused the family to stride with an exuberant amount of pride in their step. Upon reaching the morphing disc, Naruto and Diana were greeted with the sight of those who would join them on their task. Artemis, to represent Bonamidal Amazon's opinions, Alexa, because of her encyclopedia knowledge about Themyscira's history, will undoubtedly come in handy during certain conversations that are sure to take place in Deimos, because the big cat would obviously be lonely without Naruto around to keep him company. Initially Artemis was going to make a comment about the royal family's timing, but it went unsaid the moment she got an eyeful of Naruto's new equipment. That isn't a bad look for, little prince. In fact, I may just have to appoint myself as your personal guard to ensure there won't be too many harpies nipping at your heels. Alexa rolled her eyes at what Artemis counted as a compliment. Who knows, Artemis, our prince might actually find himself a wife in the outside world. Nonsense. The archer barked. He'll marry Amazon, and that's the end to that. Paying both Artemis and Alexa little mind, Hippolyta opened her arms wide with intent to embrace the prince and princess. As her children happily clung to her, the prideful mother had a few more departing words. Diana, be who you were born to be, my beloved daughter. And Naruto, never change. After exchanging a few more tearful parting words, the brother and sister along with Artemis and Alexa climbed into the Lancinarian morphing disc's cockpit while Deimos went through a necessary transformation. A sound reminiscent of a purr could be heard before a coat of fire enveloped a large lion for a short moment. Once the flames fully dissipated, a small lion cub could be seen occupying the spot where Deimos once stood. Let's go, you cowardly cat. Artemis said while banging on the invisible hull. I would very much appreciate it if we are able to leave before sunset. In one smooth motion, the bronze lion cub jumped into the cockpit and settled himself into Naruto's lap. It seems everyone is here and ready, princess. Start this thing up and fly us to the lands of liars, thieves, rapists and all sorts of other evils. As the Lancinarian morphing disc left the Earth's surface, Hippolyta smiled sadly. Hera, please ensure that my children return to their home unharmed. The lazy yawn escaped from Deimos' fang-filled maw as he snuggled into the cashmere sofa that decorated the living room of Diana's luxury high-rise condo, while paying rapt attention to the large television screen that completely covered the adjacent wall. According to the princess herself, the apartment and all the expensive gifts that filled it were given to her by a number of wealthy benefactors who felt indebted to the Themysciran after she put a stop to a mass kidnapping ring that was being perpetrated by a group of low-rent mercenaries. Initially, Diana was uncomfortable with using the expensive condo, but that changed a day ago when the Lancinarian morphing disc dropped her and the others off in the middle of Central Park and they needed a place to stay. Moments after the Themysciran party entered the fancy apartment, Diana ordered some takeout before she gave her fellow Amazons a crash course about how the world around them works to ensure they were prepared for some of the strange cultural differences she knew they're bound to witness during the course of their stay, such as rudeness, thievery and general individuals who just didn't have a kind bone in their body. For Artemis and Alexa, none of what the princess said came as a surprise, they were very much aware what evils lurked in the world of man. After Diana was satisfied with her lecture, she used the apartment's phone to inform all of her friends that she has returned to New York with a new mission and made promises to visit each one of them. It didn't exactly take long after the phone called for the accomplished Air Force pilot, Colonel Stephen Trevor, to make his way over to the Themysciran's temporary base of operations, Diana's condominium, where he immediately offered his services to their cause due to his friendship with Diana. With a decorated military officer by their side, Diana's confidence in their mission success increased 5 times over, making her believe it was only a matter of time before the Themysciran embassy was approved by the United Nations. So the very next day, the princess, along with annoyed Artemis and eager Alexa, left the condo with intentions to visit the United Nations headquarters, leaving behind both Naruto and Deimos to await their return. While Deimos was able to busy himself by enjoying the modern marvel that is television, a bored Naruto walked into the room after pacing through the apartment for the 5th time and took a seat on the couch right next to his 4-legged companion. Instead of his Themysciran-made clothes, Naruto's newest outfit consisted of a dark red muscle shirt that did nothing to cover his lighting-empowered bracelet of submission and golden fleece, a pair of average jeans that were being held up by a leather belt that featured a buckle that greatly resembled the 5-point red star that decorated his shield, and a pair of black running sneakers. Finishing off his ensemble was a leather strap he wore around his torso to allow himself to keep his Valyrian steel sword close by having it strapped across his back. All of Naruto's new clothes were a gift from Trevor, who wanted to help the warrior prince fit in with the teenagers of his world. Although both Diana and Alexa approved of the outfits, Artemis refused to her prince wear a shred of the clothing unless the outfits were modified to become more weapons friendly. I fail to see how Diana can live here comfortably. Naruto muttered as he glanced at the TV screen. Unlike Deimos, he couldn't find anything interesting about television. In his eyes, the whole concept seemed to revolve around watching someone live their lives while you waste your own. HMPH, there isn't even enough room to hone one's skills properly. It's only been a single hour since the others left the condo, and already the Themysciran prince was growing tired of being confined to dungeon. Diana called her apartment, while the others head to the UN headquarters to begin official proceedings that will eventually re-emerge Themyscira back into the world. The promise of an eventual tour around Manhattan upon their return did very little to make the time pass easier as he awaited his sister's return. I wonder if Diana and the others will have a problem if I did a little exploring. Naruto asked no one in particular as he abandoned his spot on the couch and walked over to the sliding door that led out to the balcony. Technically speaking, he wasn't exactly commanded to remain in the confines of the apartment. I'm sure if I leave now, I can return back before anyone noticed I've left. Instead of encouraging or opposing the idea, Deimos simply continued to focus his attention exclusively on the Law and Order marathon that was currently showing. Taking Deimos' silence as approval, Naruto slid the door open and walked onto the balcony. With a simple snap of his fingers, the starry firmament cape appeared in his hand and he draped the enchanted fabric around his body. Just 2 hours, Deimos, and then I'll return. And with that said, he fearlessly vaulted over the ledge and began his 48 stories free fall. The sound of the starry firmament rustling in the wind did little to dampen the screams that began to fill the air once the people on the sidewalk noticed a blonde teenager was plummeting towards the ground at an alarming rate. Naruto gained a small grin as he waited until the very last moment to activate the starry firmament special attribute to stop himself from becoming another stain on the worn concrete. Paying little mind to the odd stares and hushed whispers, the blonde prince mentally commanded the unseen force to release its hold, which caused him to drop harmlessly onto the sidewalk's concrete. After his body calmed down from the burst of adrenaline he felt due to his free fall, he took a moment to scan the sea of faces, and for the first time in his life, Naruto found himself feeling slightly self-conscious. However, after mentally reminding himself that his mother chose him to be a representative of Themyscira, the Amazonian prince straightening out his back and crossed his arms over his chest. Hello everyone of the outside world, I am Naruto of Themyscira, son of the immortal queen, Hippolyta, and the younger brother to the most fiercest warriors who have ever taken to the battlefield, the Amazons of Themyscira. Each word he spoke was filled with an exuberant amount of pride. Since his mother trusted him to be representative of their home, the blonde prince figured he has a responsibility to carry himself certain way, and so he decided to introduce himself to the world in a grandiose fashion. It didn't take the gathered crowd 10 seconds before they processed the strange blonde's boastful proclamation and began taking pictures with their cell phones. While some New Yorkers were satisfied with just taking pictures and murmuring among themselves, a haughty-looking girl with long wavy brown hair dressed in a red t-shirt that held the image of the Wonder Woman crest and a blue skirt that was decorated with a number of small white stars broke away from a group of teenagers and made her way towards Themyscira's first son. "Hey, Blondie, isn't Themyscira the place where Wonder Woman is from?" the girl asked as she boldly invaded the personal space of the blonde demigod. Giving the way her group of gal pals began to roll their eyes in annoyance. This wasn't the first time their friend decided to put herself on center stage. If the pompous girl's actions was done to unnerve foreign blonde, she chose the wrong warrior prince. That's correct. Themyscira is the home of Wonder Woman, Naruto said while effortlessly meeting the odd girl's skeptical stare. "Hey, Mary, you mind getting out of the kid's face?" one of the girls on the sideline yelled in an exasperated tone. "You're being totally rude." For a moment, the now named Mary turned her attention away from the younger teen and onto her friend. "Just give me a second here, Jennifer, I want to see what happens when someone calls this kid out on his crazy claims." After that was said, she returned her attention back onto the blonde. Just because he can fly doesn't give him the right to go around telling people he's the great Wonder Woman's brother, which was an obvious lie in her eyes. "Tell me this, kid, how can you be from Themyscira if Themyscira is an island comprised of only women, huh?" Just like a millions other people, Mary watched the exclusive interview Lois Lane held with Wonder Woman, so in turn, she believed she knew a few undisputed facts about the island nation from which the super-powered princess hails. Themyscira is indeed home to thousands of women. Naruto had no problem admitting that little tidbit of information was correct. And one lone male, me. To emphasize his point, Naruto pointed one of his thumbs at himself. "Queen Hippolyta is my mother and Diana, who you know as Wonder Woman, is my sister by blood." He didn't really see a reason to add the god of war onto his impromptu family tree. Mary crossed her arms underneath her still developing chest and stuck up her nose. "I don't believe a word of anything you just said." Naruto blinked once in the face of the girl's disbelief before shrugging his shoulders. To be honest, I don't really care if you believe me or not." The way Mary's face lost its snobbish composure revealed the blunt response wasn't what she expected from the spiky-haired blonde. With wide eyes, she watched as the younger teen turned towards another direction and began walking away with no intentions to argue. "Wow. Wait a minute." Mary yelled before running after the possible prince with her friends begrudgingly mirroring her actions. "Aren't you at least gonna try and prove you're telling the truth and not sprouting nonsense?" Naruto idly scratched the back of his head as he made note of the girl's annoyed expression. "I don't really feel the need to prove anything to you," was the prince's simple answer. "I know I'm Diana's brother just as she knows she's my sister. And that's all I need." It didn't matter to Naruto if 1 or 1,000 people of the outside world called him a liar, just as long as his mother and sisters acknowledge his place among the Amazons, everything else was just white noise. For reasons Mary didn't quite comprehend, she felt compelled to learn all she could about the strange blonde, and why would he claim to be Wonder Woman's brother? How old are you? Based off the couple of inches she had over him, Mary knew she was older, but she couldn't help but wonder by how much. 13. So he's 3 years younger than us with superpowers. Mary thought. After Naruto offered the bit of information, the floodgates seemed to have broken wide open. "What's your workout regimen? How does Wonder Woman smell? Is all of that real gold? Are you actually carrying a real sword right now? Earlier you said your mother is the queen. Does that make you a prince?" Those and so many other questions flew in the prince's direction, and being the person his mother raised him to be, he answered each one. Although all of her friends seemed to have no problem taking Naruto's words at face value, Mary's skepticism remained strong. I still don't believe him. I mean, why would a race of warrior women allow a boy to have a position of power? "I believe him," one girl said as she stared intently at Naruto's features. "He just looks so regal. The way his hair and gold catches the sun." "Hey, are you in America because you're looking for a girl to become your princess?" the girl asked in a hopeful tone as she pressed her body against Naruto. Naruto barely spared the attached girl a second glace as he answered her question. "No. I'm not looking for a wife at the moment." Thanks to all the time he spent around the women of Paradise Island, Naruto was somewhat spoiled when it came to the touch of a female. In order to get the Prince of Themyscira's attention it would take a very special woman. "Aw. Can you guys please stop encouraging his craziness?" Mary said through gritted teeth. That comment was able to spark a loud debate between the girls on whether or not the younger teen is a prince. "But I'm not crazy." By this point, the crowd was beginning to disperse once it became clear they weren't going to see the blonde perform another superhuman feat. That was the thing about New Yorkers, they were so used to seeing strange and amazing things, it would take something more than a flying teenager to hold the attention of a crowd of easily bored New Yorkers. With a shrug of his shoulders, Naruto decided to leave the girls to their debate and began to make his highly anticipated adventure. Naruto wasn't able to block away before Mary and her friends caught up to him and offered to take him around the city. With a group of female New Yorkers acting as his guides, Naruto was able to visit a number of New York's world-famous landmarks, and the only thing he had to deal with were questions about what he found attractive in women. Their first stop was Times Square, which was followed by a trip to the Rockefeller Center, and afterwards the Empire State Building and many other places. 8 hours later. So, where are we to go now? Naruto asked with a hint of eagerness in his voice as he faithfully followed the girls through a dimly lit alleyway. During the course of his excursion, Naruto had long forgotten about his self-appointed time restraint as he visited landmark after landmark and tasted some of New York's finest foods, all on the dime of Mary, who apparently came from a wealthy family. Some were awesome. Becky, a blonde-haired girl, responded as she led her friends, plus one prince, through the alley. Usually someone your age can't get into a place like this, but I know the bouncer personally. Now that the sun has set and streetlights were on, the girls figured it was time to show Naruto a side of New York he wouldn't be able to see in the brochures. I just wanted to go on record, everyone, that I was the one who said let's just call it a night after we left the pizza place. Mary said as her eyes shifted back and forth. Like an expert, Becky ignored Mary's comment as she came to a stop in front of a big metal door. At first glance the place looked like it was nothing more than the back entrance of a restaurant, which it actually was, but Becky knew it also served another purpose. 7 loud knocks later, the door opened to reveal a large muscular man. "What do you preschoolers want?" the bouncer said in a grave tone. "We want in, Brock," Becky said a confident voice. "Or I tell my sister about the thing that happened at the place with that person." A loud gulp was heard before the bouncer stepped aside. "Gee, go right ahead." With a smirk on her face, Becky led the group down a flight of stairs and into their final destination of the night, an underground club for teenagers. "Good call, Becky. Seriously, this is super appropriate place to take a 13-year-older." Mary muttered to her blonde friend as her eyes swept through the crowded room, blinding strobe lights, ear-popping music, a few individuals who moved in a drunken stumble, and of course a scantily clad drunk girl who was screaming at a wall. All in all, this wasn't a party for a kid who didn't know the difference between a Lamborghini and a school bus. "Take a pill, Mary," Becky said as she began dance. "Prince Naruto is gonna be fine, girl. Now cut all that noise out and let's show this kid how us New Yorkers get down." As her friends began to storm the dance floor, Mary rolled her eyes before she glanced towards Naruto. The fish-out-of-water expression the younger teen currently wore did a great job conveying the fact he was having a tough time understanding the scene before him. The smell of sweat and blood filled the air, bodies being tossed left and right, unexplained screams could hear, and some people could be seen with manic looks on their faces. "Is this place a battle arena?" a hopeful Naruto asked as he began to reach for his sword. "Finally, a place where he can get a workout." "Whoa," the brunette loudly exclaimed as she took hold of Naruto's wrist before he could unsheathe his weapon. "Pump your brakes, Spartacus. Although there is a very good chances we're going to see more than a couple of fights tonight if we stay here, but I'm sorry to inform you this place isn't a battle arena." Naruto tried not to look too disappointed as he lowered his hand. "Then what sort of place is this?" "It's a place where people around our ages go to unwind after going through a week filled nothing but annoying parents, teachers and bosses," Mary explained. She knew the phrase hangout would most likely go over the Naruto's head, so she made sure she elaborated a bit. "I know at first glance it doesn't look very Before she could finish her impromptu lesson about what a hangout is, the pretty brunette felt a hand trying to reach up her skirt. "What the hell?" she yelled as she turned to see the pervert who tired to grab himself a handful. Unlike the majority populace the club, the would-be groper who was staring at Mary with a creepy grin on his face was not a teenager, he stood an adult. "Why wear such a short skirt if you didn't want to make the goods easy access?" the adult among teenagers said in his utterly sleazy voice. "You asshole," Mary shouted at the top of her lungs as she held her skirt down. "I should call the cops and tell them about you, you freaking borderline rapist." The gears in Naruto's head began turning rapidly at the word rapist. Years ago, when his mother first told him the story of how Zeus's son, Hercules, shamed and enslaved the Amazons of Themyscira, he placed rape as one of the most cruelest man-made acts on their planet. The way his mother's eyes would go cold as she recalled the dark days she and her people had to suffer through could have brought a tear to Naruto's eye. The disgusting deviant waved away Mary's threat. "Oh, yeah, call the cops. And you'll be labeled as the bitch who got the most popular hangout in New York shut down," just because the adult's crude and immature rebuttal came to end when he felt a fist that had more than a considerable amount of force behind it dig into his abdomen. A glance downward revealed his attacker was a young blonde kid. Mary watched with wide eyes as the man fell to the ground and began to start violently vomiting. Many partygoers were actually forced to back away to ensure they didn't get any puke on their shoes. "Geez, Naruto. What the heck did you do?" the Wonder Woman fan asked. Out of all the people she'd seen get punched in the gut, not once had she witnessed someone react in such a disgusting manner. Naruto crossed his arms as he looked down at the man with a sneer on his face. Underneath his seemingly calm demeanor, the son of war was having an internal struggle on whether or not he should take the man's offending hand with his sword. I punched him directly below his ribcage. Because, as far as I know, that's the only clear path to the liver. And thanks to Alkyon's secret anatomy lessons, he knew that punching someone in the liver would undoubtedly garner a very unpleasant reaction. Ugh. Mary groaned as she took Naruto's hand. Come on, let's go find the idiot brigade and get out of here before we run into another creep. And also, I'm more than sure it's past your curfew. However, before the duo could begin combing through the partying teens, they found themselves halted by a deafening bang and a blinding light. It would take at least 10 seconds before bright light finally died down, and everyone in the underground club found themselves drawn to the side of out of 6 masked men standing side by side near the hangout's entrance. Their appearance made it simple to identify them as criminals. Each man wore an all-black outfit that show a hint of skin, they all had visible firearms at the ready, and covering each of their faces were farm animal masked. Damn cow, when you first said you knew how to make homemade flash bombs, I'll admit, I was a little skeptical. But those things were awesome. A man in a chicken mask said, only to be shushed by their goat-faced leader. Good evening, young ladies and gentlemen. The goat yelled as he broke ranks to walk among the club's patrons. The shotgun he was currently brandishing was effectively keeping a number of people from becoming brave. This is, obviously, a robbery. And me and my farmhouse friends here would oh so appreciated it if you guys would be cool and corporate. Got it. His response was an air of silence. Awesome. First thing first, I need everyone on the ground ASAP, and if me and my guys see anyone try to talk or text on their cell phone, we'll be obligated to start hurting people. Almost immediately, everyone excluding one lone individual dropped to the ground. Still standing, Naruto tilted his head slightly to the right as he eyed the weapons each masked man held. So these are some of the scum of the earth Artemis told me about. The prince muttered to himself as he stared at the men as if they were a strange zoo exhibit. Since the island nation of Themyscira was basically devoid of crime, this was the first time the young blonde found himself in the presence of a criminal. From her spot on the ground, Mary did her best to grab Naruto's attention before he winded up the robber's spotlight. Get down before one of those jerks notice you, you idiot. She said in a hushed whisper. Ironically, it was the sound of Mary's awfully dampened voice that grabbed the attention of one of the patrolling criminals. Well, what do we have here? The goat said in a playful tone as his eyes narrowed and won the blonde. It seems we have a damned anarchist on our hands, boys. Because some asshole doesn't want to conform even though it'll be the only thing that keeps him alive. With an audible growl, the goat marched over to the standing individual, stopping only to avoid a puddle of puke. Hey kid, what is your damn problem? My problem? Naruto asked rhetorically. My problem is that I'm staring down a coward who chooses to spend his days taking things that isn't his own. Underneath his animal mask, the leader sneered. You're damn right I'm a problem, kid. Now hit the deck before he could begin making his threats. The sight of the kid's golden bracelet and band caught the goat's attention. That bracelet and that band, take him off, kid. Off the slight chances that this kid had parents loaded and dumb enough to let their kid walk around the streets of New York with jewelry like this. Well, he and his friends finally made their big break. Naruto didn't even flinch under the weight of the demand. Both my mother and aunt gave me these items, and I promised them I would never remove them unless I'm passing them to my child. Underneath his mask, the leader rolled his eyes moments before he cocked his shotgun. I see now that you aren't really that bright, kid, because you've just mistook a demand for a fucking re. In one smooth motion, Naruto snatched the shotgun out of the goat's hand and jammed the butt of the weapon into its owner's stomach. TCH, to threaten a Themysciran. How many fools like you walk this earth? The blonde prince said before he rendered the weapon useless by snapping it like a pencil. Chris. A man in a pig mask yelled before he and the rest of the farmhouse bandits pointed their respective weapons at the blonde kid who just effortlessly took out his leader. Contempt was present in Naruto's eyes as he drew his sword. I can hear the cowardice in your voice. Place your weapon on the ground and you have my word, no harm will come to you. Instead of taking the deal, Pig kept the barrel of his weapon pointed directly on the blonde kid. Dude, what are you crazy? Me and my friends are the ones with guns, that means we're in charge, and I'm telling you to back the hell away from Chris. Stop saying my real name, you dumbass. Naruto gave the men a dead-eyed stare that caused their bodies to seize up. This is not something any of you fools can win. Faster than any of the thieves could anticipate, Naruto covered the distance between him. The page-faced man cut the man's assault rifle in half with his sword. The kid is a fucking meta. A chicken masked man yelled before he began firing his handgun in a desperate attempt to save his own hide. With little effort, Naruto used both his golden bracelet and fleece to deflect the incoming bullets. Thanks to his above-normal reflexes, the blonde Themysciran was able to ensure not a single person was harmed by a stray bullet. Once his weapon was spent of ammo, Chicken snatched off his mask to reveal a dirty and greasy face to the world and glared at the blonde. "I bet you think you got us, don't you?" The unmasked man sneered. "Well, guess what? You didn't. It's time you meet our heavy hitter. Mammoth. Get your big ass down here. We got trouble." A second after the shout, the ceiling was violently torn apart, allowing a large muscular man with wild orange hair to descend into underground basement. Many teens were forced to scramble out of the way before they were crushed underneath the weight of the large man. "Whad you mean trouble?" The orange-haired man said a gruff voice. The accused's finger was aimed at the warrior prince. "That brat right there. He's a metahuman. You want to get paid, take this little bastard out of the equation." The fiendish smile made its way onto Mammoth's face as he stared down the brat in question. "Seriously? You guys are having problems with this little punk? That's just sad." Despite Mammoth's impressive size and build, Naruto met the taller man's eyes. "Can you provide me with a challenge?" Get a load of this kid." Challenge he an impressive physical display, Naruto launched himself towards Mammoth and kneed the larger man square on his chin. The strength behind the attack was enough to send Mammoth rocketing through the already ruined ceiling. To say everyone was astounded by Naruto's strength would be understatement. There wasn't a closed mouth in the building, as hostages and criminals alike gaped at the blonde. "If I return and these people are still being held against their will, I will not be merciful." After witnessing what the blonde teen did to their hulking heavy hitter, the animal-themed criminals wisely dropped their weapons. In a single bound, Naruto was back above street level and staring down a recovering Mammoth. "Submit. Now." Mammoth released a primal yell as quickly climbed to his feet and rushed the whisker-marked teen. "I'll grind you into dust." For a well-trained warrior like Naruto, avoiding the large man was a simple act. All he had to do was duck or weave out of any of Mammoth's easily telegraphed punches and wild swipes. A look of annoyance was on the young prince's face as went over the many ways he could put an end to fight. "Stand still. You bastard." Mammoth roared as tried his very best to overwhelm the smaller combatant. It was during once of Mammoth's overextended punches when Naruto decided to put an end to it all. This battle was decided the moment you choose to fight a superior warrior. A rising uppercut followed by a sharp elbow to the jaw were just enough to stun orange-haired man, which allowed Hippolyta's only son to take hold of Mammoth's head with both of his hands. "Weak." He yelled a moment before he drove his knee into Mammoth's skull, which effectively rendered the man unconscious. Upon his flawless landing, Naruto crossed his arms and stared at Mammoth's unconscious form. "You wouldn't last a second on Themyscira." And with that said, he turned around with the intentions of returning to the club to check the conditions of the bystanders. However, at some point during his battle with Mammoth, just about all of the club's patrons had made their way out to watch the battle. Standing directly in front of the crowd was Mary and the other girls Naruto met earlier. After watching everything the young blonde just pulled off, the brunette was finding it difficult to dispute Naruto's claim any further. However, before Mary could voice her newfound belief, she was cut off when someone shoved her aside in order to confront the young hero with a gun in hand. "You little nosy bastard." With signs of his run-in with the teen still gracing the front of his shirt, the pervert from Naruto's earlier conflict aimed the barrel of the handgun he found on the club's floor directly at the blonde teen's head. "You don't make a guy puke in front of a chick. It's not cool." Before the desperate man had a chance to apply a hint of pressure against the pistol's trigger, an arrow cut through the air like a missile and penetrated the flesh and bone of the man's hand. "Arg!" he screamed as the gun fell from his hand. Perched atop a nearby building, Artemis, with a bow and arrow in hand, glared at Naruto before her eyes shifted towards Mammoth's senseless form. "HMPH, I trust you've had some fun on your adventure, little prince." Before Naruto could question Artemis on how she found him, Deimos, in his normal size, appeared the next to retreated archer. "Traitor." In response to Naruto's accusation, Deimos jumped off the building's roof and walked over to his master. Once the large lion began nuzzle its soft fur against his person, Naruto found himself instantly forgiving Deimos. "Well, I guess I can't blame you. There is a person on this earth that can keep Artemis from getting what she wants." In a single leap, Artemis joined Naruto and Deimos. "You truly are wise beyond your years, Prince Naruto, because there isn't anything that can keep me from getting what I want. And what I want now is to return to our temporary abode." And with that said, she jumped on Deimos' back. "Now let's go." "Just one moment, Artemis," Naruto said before turned towards Mary. "I had a lot of fun today, Mary. I really hope we'll meet again." The sight of the larger-than-lion made responding very difficult for Mary. Later. As Naruto climbed onto Deimos' back, he was totally unaware that more than a few dozen people were recording his every moment. "Dude." One guy said as ensured his Waynetic smartphone tracked the Themyscirans and the giant lion until they were long out of range. "First thing tomorrow, I'm going to News's station and selling this footage for about 10,000 bucks." And cut. I hope you enjoyed. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next part.